I would hope someone even very stoned would know, don't shove your hand in a Pringles can. Then again, there are also those idiots that drop something in the no, what is it called? Oh good, the oh shit, the thing that like in your sink spins, like gets rid, the disposal
Garbage
thing. I
disposal.
can't, garbage disposal. There we go. Um, and like they'll drop something in there and then just shove their entire hand around and like move with the blades to try and find it. I'm like, you're an insane person, like
What?
insane. 'Cause I guess some people don't know, like you can just take a magnet and drop it down in there and pull out whatever you've dropped in there. Like it's really that simple. I mean, unless you're dropping like, I don't know, like important tax papers down the garbage disposal or some shit.
I mean, that's one way to get rid of them, I suppose.
I guess.
It seems like it would have been just easier to use the shredder if you have it. Who the hell has a shredder?
Exactly.
Okay. All right, we are live. So if you can get from the people in the chat a yay or nay on the audio, that'd be appreciated, whatever. I don't know, words fucking hard. Oh,
Yes,
it's gonna be
they
one of
are.
those days. Tyler, I did notice that your lips did go out of sync there for a while, and then it like paused, and then it went good again. So I don't know why that is.
I don't know.
You're fine. Like, you're fine
I'm
again now.
surprised Discord is working as well as it is.
Oh, you should find yourself some wood to knock on there because we got a whole podcast to do.
We just knock on that wood pretty
It's
aggressively.
a particle board, not real wood. Damn it.
It counts.
All right. Everyone's saying
I
yay.
actually I actually have Audacity loaded up. Like a
Okay.
smart guy.
Like I do too. I'm literally all ready to go, and I figured out something I could say for the first section. So I did actually do something this week in open source. So it'll be fun, something to talk about. We should. That'd be good. Damn, I gotta put some. I have this sore on my hand. That wouldn't have been a sore if I didn't pick at the dry skin on there. And then I put this new skin shit on it, and it stings like a bitch.
Well, what you should just do is start using cocoa butter, brother.
Well,
Right.
it doesn't have anything to do with dry hands. It has to do with my cane. It's like a sore from my cane because I use the cane, and it's like it's related to that.
Well, you know what? You could just rub cocoa butter all over your cane. That might help.
Yeah, and
Although, then again,
very
if somebody
slippery.
else grabs your cane, they're gonna be so grossed out. Just grab a cane
Like,
and it's
what is
covered in
that
cocoa butter.
again? All right, that's funny.
Oh my god, that'd be
Oh,
so funny.
yeah. So, unfortunately, we didn't record that earlier conversation where we were talking about weed. That would have been a great pre-show.
That
And
would have been
Doritos, man,
hilarious.
we had the whole discussion about Doritos. We didn't record it.
Exactly. For one, people would have enjoyed that. Two, speaking of that, I had someone comment on my Calm Window Manager video, "Are you stoned?" And I had to rewatch it because I do look stoned, but I'm like, honest, I've responded with him. I was like, maybe, but to be honest, I don't know because me being stoned looks very similar to me recording at just 3 o'clock in the morning. I practically look stoned when I record that late. Cause typically what I do is I'll record, I'll like do the editing. I won't upload it or anything, and I'll just pass out. Like when it get, I don't know if you do that too, where you like record super late at night, but you look dead. Like you're just
Sometimes,
so
yeah.
ready for sleep. I do that way too often, man. I need to fix my sleep schedule, but that's a whole nother separate problem.
I've been saying that for a long time. I've never done it. When you work a job for 10 years overnight and you're like 20s, you're never going to get your sleep schedule back ever again.
hmm I worked the third shift at a gas station, and trust me, man, like you do that for any considerable amount of time, and your sleep schedule it'll never be the same. It won't. It messes you up.
True story. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Why not? We're here. We might as well do it. We didn't bullshit for nearly as long as we normally do, but I'm just, I'm ready and raring to go.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So you said you have Audacity up, eh?
I do.
All right. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna hit record in Audacity. I'm gonna hit record in OBS, and you can do the claps whenever you like.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
That was pretty close.
Pretty close.
Not bad. We've had worse. Just put it that way.
That is true. That is very true.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna get started here. We got, let's see, I got the I was almost completely prepared. Almost. So I got the news links up. And we are recording. I just made sure of that again because, it would have been hilarious. I have recorded a podcast. Actually, I've done this more than once with the other guys, where we talked for like an hour and a half, and then got to the end and realized I never hit the record button. So I've gotten into the habit of checking multiple times. I got that little OCD going on. All right, let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to Linux Cast. I'm your host, Matt.
And I'm Tyler.
So this is the Linux Cast. We record things about Linux and open source and BSD now. Those types of things. We also are avid Windows users. Oh, wait a minute.
Of course.
That's the other podcast that I do, Windows Weekly.
Because there's going to be people searching for that now.
Well, there's actually a podcast called Windows Weekly. I'm not on it. They they wouldn't want me on every other. Windows sucks, you fucking fools. Use Linux. Actually, I'd be like, actually, Paul, what you're looking for is GNU/Linux.
Oh my god.
I don't know why I turned Bill Gates there for a minute. Okay. As you can tell, I don't have my shit together. I mean, I do have my shit together, but not this shit. I have the other shit together. And I have no clue what I'm doing. So if you're here expecting this podcast to be any sort of organized, you must be new.
Yeah. 100%.
So, all right. So this is going to be a really bad podcast. I'm just going to point that out there because words and Matt today are not just going together whatsoever. So just going to put that out there. So Tyler, what have you been doing in FOSS and Unix and Linux and stuff this week?
Well, I'm using OpenBSD 7.1 came out. I don't even know how long ago it was, but about a week ago it dropped. So I finally went back around and I did an encrypted install this time around, which was remarkably simple. Like, I mean, doing an encrypted install with OpenBSD is stupid simple. It's really easy. But beyond that, I've just been playing around with Menafin. I think that's how you're supposed to say it. MEDNAFEN, which is, it's a really good emulator. It's available on Linux. I believe it's even available on Windows, and of course BSDs. And it's super awesome. You can it supports a crap load of systems, and I've been using it to mess around with Silent Hill and OG Resident Evil, and playing that here on OpenBSD. I haven't really played Silent Hill that much, mainly just trying to test it out and play with it, like before I stream it or do anything like that on the channel with it, mainly because there's a weird audio issue that I'm having. Like, it seems like it's cutting in and out, but I have, when it comes to like old retro games and emulators and stuff, I'm not a pro with, so I don't know if that's like a problem that's easily fixed. or something like that. So I'm trying to figure out if I can fix it before I stream it. But that's really what I've been doing, just playing around with emulators. That's about it. So
It seems to me that the biggest problem you have on BSD is audio related. Is that true?
no, because audio works super well on OpenBSD. It's super simple. I've had an issue with because of my script. FFmpeg was having an issue with audio, but I got that fixed with my script. Can't remember what the final flag was that fixed it, but it was something stupid with the script and the way I was recording or like mixing audio with FFmpeg, which was, I mean, that's annoying. But really, in all honesty, like on Linux, I was having the same issue with Minafin, whatever. I tried it on my mom's Ubuntu laptop just to make sure it wasn't something that was specific to OpenBSD, and it had the same
Mm.
weird audio problems.
So it's probably something to do with the emulator itself.
Yeah, or it could also be the game too, because I know there's some games that like don't emulate really well. So it could be that. Honestly, I'm so stupid when it comes to retro games. I have no idea. Like that also could be the way that it's meant to sound. I have no idea. Like it's been so long since I played Silent Hill that that's, as far as I know, it could have like weird audio. Like it sounds like audio glitching, but it could just be the old
Yeah.
implementation of audio. I have no idea.
I've been meaning to actually look into some emulators and play some stuff like that, but one of those things I just haven't got around to. Someday, hopefully.
Yep. Well, I will say with Mednafin, it's really simple as an emulator to get set up. Really simple. It's just I have no idea how difficult it can be to solve problems that you encounter with it.
Yeah.
So
All right, so what I've done, so originally I was mostly going to say I haven't done anything in terms of open source and stuff, but that's actually not true. So as we all know, Elon Musk has purchased Twitter because everyone has to know this because it's like the only thing anybody's talking about. But because it's the new in thing to do, I decided that I was going to join Mastodon again. Now, I was on DT's instance of Mastodon called DistroToot, but he shut that down a few weeks ago, so that's not actually around anymore. So I joined a instance called Fostodon. You can find the link in the video description, although it may not be in this video description. I'm not actually sure. I used last week's video description, so but anyways, in normal video descriptions, you'll see that there. I have to say that this instance is pretty good because they filter out most of the weird shit. Like, there's some really raunchy shit in the federated timeline in a non-moderated instance. So I'm glad that that's gone. But other than that, yeah, that's basically all I've done. Still, the mobile app like ecosystem for Mastodon is actually pretty good. But the website for Mastodon is kind of crap. So
I still haven't got checked out. I've used Mastodon in the past, but I've never stuck with it. It's the same thing. I've tried Twitter in the past. I can't be asked. I don't know, like those, it seems like those type of social media platforms they're not interesting for me because they're like, when you talk on Twitter or the Fediverse or anything, it's meant to be like just a snippet. Like you're throwing out a snippet, and if we're being honest, snippets, like you don't really have a real conversation, a real point there, and I don't know, it gets really boring fast. I've never used Twitter or Mastodon and had like serious conversations back and forth with people. It typically ends in me or somebody else saying something and then nothing either happening from the post, like no real comments, no real back and forth, or it's a flame war in the like just back and forth, you just getting pissed off and talking with someone. I'm like, I can't be bothered.
Peter in the chat says I should enable advanced mode. I did enable advanced mode. It's actually worse than the regular website. I'm just gonna put that out there. If you've ever used actual TweetDeck, which is what the advanced mode is modeled on, there's nothing. It's not even close. Like you can add columns and stuff like that if you want to, but you can't collapse them. You can't change colors. There's just a ton of stuff you can't do, and it just like I said, it kind of sucks, especially compared to regular TweetDeck. So, but that's something that could probably be fixed if they continue to be more popular. The nature of open source software, which would be cool, because anybody can create themselves a application for it. Maybe I should learn how to do that. We'll see if that happens. All right. And by the way, yes, I have a video recorded about Mastodon that will go up sometime soon. And I'm expecting that video to absolutely bomb. Like, I expect nobody to watch that. For whatever reason, talking about social media on the channel, just nobody cares. Like, nobody cares.
Well, this might be something that somebody finds interesting, just because I thought it was interesting. Now, I'm going to say someone's name that relates to politics. Let me make it clear, we are not going to discuss the man nor his politics or politics in general. There's that statement there. I don't know if you know this or not, but Trump made his own social media network called, I think it was Truth Social is the name of the actual platform.
Yeah, he ripped off Mastodon, yeah.
Exactly. Super ironic that Truth Social was forced to tell the truth about what they were based on, because they at first were denying that they were based off of Mastodon and using Mastodon's code. Then they were essentially forced to tell the truth, which is just so ironic, so funny. That's all I had to say about that. I found that bit of social media news pretty interesting. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it definitely was funny. I don't know, man. It's just most people in the Linux community seem to not, like, unless they're on social media, they don't care about social media, right? Unless you've actually got on there and you're part of the cesspool, then most people just don't care. All right, moving on to the contact information. If you want to get in contact with us, you can do so in many different ways. You can contact us via email at email@thelinuxcast.org. You can find all of our contact links and stuff and blog posts in the latest episodes at thelinuxcast.org, which is a website. It does exist, and it is updated. So as of like last week, I actually did update the damn thing. So I'm trying to keep that up to date as well as I can. You can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/linuxcast. You can subscribe to Tyler, who goes by Zany Online, on YouTube at youtube.com/ZanyOG. Almost forgot there. Went a little bit like completely blank for about 5 seconds, and it was a little weird. Anyways, yeah, youtube.com/ZanyOG. He's also on Odyssey, and he has a Discord server, and there's a merch store there to be had, so you can definitely buy some merch. You should definitely do that. We should find some more merch to put on there.
Yes, we should.
Anyways, you can also find all of our contact information. So the aforementioned Fostodon link probably will be there eventually. It's not there yet, but it should be someday. The whole me keeping it up to date, not so much. Anyways, you can find all of those links and stuff at linuxcast.org/contact. So you should definitely do that. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/linuxcast, where you'll find YouTube videos posted 7 days a week for the most part. I missed one yesterday because reasons. But anyways, yeah. And youtube.com/linuxcast. So moving on. Tyler, you and I scour the internet every single week for the most exciting and amazing news you'll ever find on the internet anywhere. And today I'm going to go first, because I want to talk about the most amazing technology you've ever heard of before. It's the most modern technology. Everyone is using it these days, and you should definitely check it out, because it's just the absolute bomb, if anyone says that anymore. Actually, when these things were used, it was probably before the bomb. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm talking about floppy disks, of course. So, yes, I'm talking about floppy disks because things are going on with floppy disks. I don't know if you know this, but over the last few weeks or the last year or so, many things have been going on with the code in the Linux kernel that still supports floppy disks. And the specific news here today is that there's some stuff here that's being disabled by default and is going to be depreciated. I don't really care about the news itself. I just wanted to talk about floppy disks for a minute. So, did you know that the Linux kernel still supports floppy disks? I mean,
I did.
why?
I did.
Why? Why? Why does it still? Why? Like, everyone talks about bloat. Like, bloat is the word in the Linux community, and we just happen to still support these 2.5-inch things that you. I mean, they're cool.
Look, dude, when hardly anybody still uses CDs, the idea of still supporting floppy drives is crazy. But hey, it's Linux.
But you know, a lot of shit you know that there's that one person out there that's still using a computer that has a floppy disk drive on it, and if they pull, but there's the things that it just doesn't compute to me, because you know that person who is using Linux, there's no way they're still using a kernel that is up to date. Like, probably because the vast majority of people aren't using if you have a floppy disk thing, you're probably forced to use a 32-bit version of an operating system, which means you're using an older kernel, probably. I mean, because the vast majority,
that's so true.
Most distros don't even have a 32-bit anymore. Now, there still are some out there, obviously, but they're not used very much. So it's just, it's weird, man. Like, I have some amazing things stored on floppy disks around here, stored somewhere in my house. Like, all of the, because when I first got on the internet, that's it was just before like CDRWs became a thing that could be used commercially. Like, they existed, but they were so friggin' expensive, nobody could afford the writers. So you had to use floppy disks. So when I first got on the internet, it was literally dial-up. Like, and I never paid, by the way. Every single time I went and got the AOL disk, the trial would run through, I would get a new disk and just sign up for a new account every single time. I was like, I'm not paying for this shit. It's really, really slow, man. But anyways, I have like a stack full of floppy disks with all of just a ton of stuff. I mean, you gotta remember, I was a teenager, so you can imagine what most of that stuff is. I'm just gonna put that out there. But I can, if I had to read one of those things now, like if I had to figure out where I could, actually put that in a computer somewhere and have it be, read, I don't think I have a computer in the house that has a floppy disk drive anymore.
Could you imagine trying to explain to someone how you bought a floppy to USB device that you could read that would just be insane.
Okay, we got to find this out. We're going to go look right now, seriously, Amazon.com, and we're going to find out if there's an external floppy drive that they still sell.
I guarantee you nobody's buying them, so if you find one, I'm going to bet it's going to be around $20 in price.
You were exactly right. It's $23.99.
There we go.
That's hilarious. There we go. That's so much fun. Oh God. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, at a certain point, we can just say that, yeah, it's going to piss 5 people off, but it's okay that we don't support that anymore, right? That's something that we can do. Like, I could understand if they took, I don't know, CD support out of Linux, pissing people off, because I mean, people still do listen to, CDs on their computers. I mean, I don't know anybody, but I mean, I know people do. But like, every once in a while, I would still want to put a CD in my computer. I couldn't do it because my computer doesn't have an optical drive, but I have an external around somewhere. But it's just, it feels like at a certain point, and I'm not sure what point that is, there's some things we can just kind of leave by the wayside, and we're not necessarily abandoning those people because they can still, you know, just use an older kernel. They can use, I mean, you don't, just because, I mean, there are still like version 4 of the kernel still being supported. There are versions of version 4, like the 4.0 kernel or one of the 4 series kernel that are still being supported. And that thing's like really old, right? So,
really old.
So I mean, you're still going to get security updates and you're going to get your floppy support, but that doesn't mean the people who are using 5.17 or 5.18 or whatever it is now have to have this. I mean, it's not hurting anything. It just feels like it's something that...
And also, in your article, it does make it clear that they're not carving out support for floppy disk. It's just disabled by default.
Yeah.
You'll have to go in. Now, it's been marked, as far as I could tell by reading that, it's been marked deprecated and will eventually be removed.
Removed, yeah.
But it's not now. Like, it's not completely out of the kernel now. It's just you'll have to enable it.
Yeah, it's just,
hopefully it's not too bad.
I saw this article and it just reminded me of the fact that there's just stuff in the Linux kernel that, I mean, eventually it's possible that it needs support. And we talked a couple weeks ago about how Fedora is thinking about removing legacy BIOS support, and like, like that's something that everybody uses. Like a lot of people use legacy BIOS, and they're thinking about removing that. But floppy disks get removed, and people are like, "Oh my God, you're taking away floppy disk support! You know, how dare you?"
People that haven't used a floppy disk in like 8 years are like, "Why? But why?"
I mean, there's going to come a certain point where the floppy disk is basically like the cassette tape, you know. The people who are old enough, they know that when you use a cassette tape, first of all, the players were unreliable. They ate the damn tapes all the damn time, like all the time. Like it wasn't even like if you went a week without it happening, you were probably pretty lucky. Also, and usually that's because you were trying to rewind the thing in the tape player because, you know, you're not, I mean, you could do it, but you weren't technically supposed to do it. But really what you're supposed to do is take the thing out, get yourself a pencil and rewind it that way. Yeah. It's like we still have literally in my house underneath our TV a VCR tape rewinder. Like the thing is, you put it in there and all it does, the entire purpose is to rewind VHS tapes. It's still out there. It's not plugged in, thank God. It's not drawing power, which would have been hilarious for like 20 years. We haven't used it in 20 years, but we dust it like once a week. Because we live on a dirt road, right? So we had to dust a lot. But the point is like we see this thing, it's still sitting there. We haven't used it in 20 years. We have a VCR sitting like right on top of it. And that hasn't been used either in 20 years, but we have a whole closet full of VHS tapes.
Just in case when you want to pull those out and watch them, they're there.
We've tried to get some we thought, well, maybe Good will take them because, you know, maybe somebody will want them, but no, nobody wants them. You can't give these things away, and you can't recycle them because all of them have like weird like chemicals in them stuff, so you can't like recycle them. So there's just in my closet like boxes upon boxes of these things. Like it's just weird. Anyways. Like you could just tell that I wasn't really interested in the news this time. I had to talk about old stuff. Anyways, Tyler, what is your news for the week?
Mine is the RX 6400 on Linux. If any of you guys haven't seen this card, it's a low power card. It's really nothing special. Based off of the actual specs of the card, it seems to be very close to like something like a 7770 from back in the day, but with some obviously better clock speeds and obviously more RAM. It comes with 4 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory, which is pretty freaking nice on the memory side, but it's a low power card. It does not require any PCIe extra power, and it comes in at a price range of about $150. after tax and everything, more close on the 200 side.
Mm.
But what makes it super interesting is it's a low profile one slot graphics card, which is really nice for people who want to build something like I've built, a super compact mini ITX build. This is something where if you don't have an APU or you're not really interested in something like an APU, you can get this and have at least a decent 1080p gaming experience. And the fact that it's just a single slot, low profile card means even in a larger computer build, you can throw in this card and really not have to worry about cutting off a 1x lane or anything like that. You can slap this in and not really worry about anything. And it, as far as I know, the TDP of this thing is like really low. I can't remember. It doesn't
Yeah,
mention, I think it's
you
down
don't
here at
need
the bottom.
dedicated power for this.
It's a 53 watt TDP card.
And I think you can draw like 70 from something like that.
I believe it's 70 watts, which is nice. I mean, it's around 50 watts of load, like power being drawn. Like that's pretty nice, especially when you get 1080p gaming.
So I was watching Gamers Nexus when they talked about this during their hardware news thing, and it is definitely overpriced. Like, but everything is overpriced these days. Like this, if this was 2 years ago, this would be $80, and people would think that was perfectly fine. But nowadays, $140 for a graphics card seems like, oh, that's pretty good. Like
well, especially when you want to go, even if you went older used with something about this performance level, you're probably going to be spending the same amount of money on it. Like that's the real problem with the graphics card market right now. You can't even get pre-owned and get a good deal on it.
Well, apparently they are coming down, but we'll see. I was listening to the Craft Computing podcast, and they said that they were talking about the graphics card prices coming down because the chip shortage is something that they've kind of worked out now. But now there's going to be a PCB shortage. Like, that's the new word, shortage. Like everything's in shortage. Like eventually,
everything.
Like
I've even heard like I heard. I'm not going to say names because I don't even know if I should know this or whatever. But as far as I know, Honda has cut back their production, like cars, by a lot, and their main dealer for chips for their onboard control units have dropped out of the contract. They can't fulfill it anymore. And so they're having to like airdrop in or like airship in all of their chips, which has cut their margins like a ton. It's nuts trying to get, like, everything's in shortage, especially when it comes to like computer parts for cars even. It's crazy.
Yep, it's just weird times we're living in. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the main topic for today, which is Electron good or evil? So just briefly before we move on, let's just go ahead and talk about what Electron is. So in very layman's terms, in non-technological terms, because remember, neither one of us are really developers, so we're not going to talk about the developer side of this. So if that's what you're here for, we'll have to apologize on that. But from a user perspective, what Electron is a Chromium-based wrapper that allows you to create applications. So like that's basically what that is. It's using a lot of Google technologies, and it allows you to, like I said, create applications. And chances are, every single one of us use at least one Electron app. We're using an Electron app right now to do this call. So the Discord is an Electron app. And it shows. A lot of times it definitely does show. Like Spotify is an Electron app. Slack, if you use Slack. Microsoft Teams is an Electron app. I'm not actually sure about that. I could be just pulling that out of my ass. But there's there's just a ton of these things that you probably use that are usually Windows programs that are actually Electron apps. And the hilarious thing is that a lot of times, even on Windows, they're Electron apps. So they're not actually native apps there either. So that's what Electron is. So Tyler, what's your position on the whole Electron thing? Do you think they're good? Do you think they're bad?
See, it's a tough question to say like Electron apps are bad, because in a lot of the cases, if the app wasn't Electron, there's a good chance that it wouldn't exist, just because of the development power that needs to go into it to make it. I mean, like, as again, from a user's perspective, from what I hear about Electron, it sounds like Electron makes it very easy to implement a web app. Like Discord is, most of everything that it's doing is over the, like, most primarily web-based applications are easier to implement in Electron. However, I wish that most developers and companies would not, like, elect not to use Electron and actually develop a good application. Because if we're going to be honest, Electron is essentially a easy way to implement your application. All you essentially have to do is wrap your website or your web app in Electron, and it's going to just work.
Mm-hmm.
Except for on the user side, because Electron apps perform like shit. They are really aggressively bloated. Like, even we don't even have to argue about what does bloated mean. From pretty much every side of the, like, however you define bloated, it's bloated. It uses more RAM, takes up more space. It just, in general, you're going, because it's essentially a web, like, as far as I know, Electron is essentially trying to emulate a browser.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what Electron does. And so you're going to have functionality built into Electron that the app doesn't take use of, doesn't need. So I don't know, like, Electron from a development side might be good because you can simply not have to do a lot of the development work to get it functioning,
Mm-hmm.
and send it out to people and have it, at the very least, open and function. Probably not well, but it will still function. I think that's easier from a developer side, but from a user side, spend the time to develop the application, please.
Okay, so I'm right there with you. I'm of the camp of that. If Electron didn't exist, there would be a much bigger problem on Linux in terms of software. Like, there'd be a lot of stuff here that we just wouldn't have. We wouldn't have Discord, so you'd have to use the web app. If, like, actually in the browser. If you want Slack, you'd have to use it in the browser. So, some people would say that that's better. Like, some people would say that it would just use a web tab, like a tab in a browser. Just use Firefox, and you'll be fine. Personally, I like things that at least appear to be a native client. Like, I'd prefer to have, like, even if it's Electron, I would prefer to have Discord installed on my system. Even though it's Electron, I'd prefer to have it actually look like a native application that I can launch from Rofi and move along on my day. The thing is that you're right. They do often perform bad. And it's not that they're bloated in terms of features or anything like that. It's that they're based on Chromium, and Chrome, by the nature of being, Chrome, takes up a lot of memory. Like, it's takes up a lot of memory. But this is not even a Chrome problem. Firefox takes up a crap load of memory. It's the nature of being a web browser. And because you're basically running a web browser when you're running an Electron app, you're going to find that it takes up a lot of memory. So, for example, I got to remember, I have a ton of stuff open right now. So right now I'm using 13 gigabytes of RAM. Like, right now. And granted, that's part of that's going to be OBS, but it's just it's an insane amount of RAM, and part of that's going to be because I have a Discord call open, and it's using Electron. I'm trying to think. Do I have any other? Oh, I do have other Electron apps open right now. I have Todoist open right now. and that's an Electron app. So I have two Electron apps open on my system right now. The thing is that it doesn't bother me nearly as much as other people. Like, I can afford, in terms of RAM costs, to have my computer use 13 gigabytes RAM all the time, and it's fine because I have 64 gigabytes of RAM, and I have RAM to spare, as they say. But if you're on like a laptop that has 4 gigabytes of RAM, you're screwed. That thing is going to perform worth a damn, and that's where the Electron argument kind of falls off, in that it works fine if you're Dylan and you have access to all this hardware, you know, or if you're me and you have 64 gigabytes of RAM, you know, but most people don't. And most people are running 8 gigabytes. I think if you look on the Steam survey, the vast majority of people run 8 gigabytes. 16 gigabytes is slowly becoming more popular, but very people have more than that. And if you're dedicating 2 gigabytes of RAM to run your Electron apps, it could be a definite problem if you also want to have Discord open while you're gaming or anything like that. You know, RAM is precious, and if you only have 8 gigabytes of to spare and go around. The thing is that despite the fact that you have to deal with the bad performance, I'd still rather it exist than it not exist, if you know what I mean. Because the number of people, I mean, yes, Linux is still not mainstream. It still doesn't have a ton of, market share, but the number of people who have been able to switch to Linux because Electron exists is at least somewhat significant. Because they can say, well, I really need Slack. Like, a lot of companies just use Slack all the time. It's their method of communication. And for whatever reason, they don't want to have it in the browser. They want to have an application. And having that available on Linux has enabled them to switch to Linux, where otherwise they may not have been able to do so, right? So I think it's important that it does exist. What I'm surprised at is that it's been around for a long time, and it's developed by very large corporations. Like, a lot of people contribute to it. What I'm very much surprised at is that they haven't fixed it. Like, how is it that this thing is 10 years old, or however old it is, and they haven't put the effort into at least make it somewhat good? Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, somewhat good. Like cut the RAM usage by 50%. Everyone's happy. Like everybody would dance in the freaking streets if they cut it by 50%, and it would be great. Like, people would stop bad mouthing, Electron, or most people would start bad mouthing. It's the same thing with snaps, right? If Canonical cut the boot time of snaps that cold launch by 50%, the vast majority of people who complain about snaps now would stop complaining. Whether or not they'd use snaps or not, I don't know, but they'd stop complaining about it. It would stop being a news item, all the time. Like, snaps are slow. It's the same thing in this situation, right? If they cut that memory usage in half, the vast majority of people would have nothing to complain about in terms of Electron, because that's the thing that people complain about.
But see, that's the problem. If they cut that RAM usage in half, well, they're going to it's really hard to do that, because Electron is essentially a browser. And for Electron to support most of the things that it does support, the web apps that it does support, it has to be a browser. Like, it has to function as a browser. And as we all know, browsers eat RAM. They just do. And actually, I think it was Jimmy Wills posted a comment talking about how, like, making a good application is really hard to do cross-platform. And that is the idea behind Electron.
Mm-hmm.
A developer does not have to work on, making an application in Windows and then porting that application over to Linux, BSD, every operating system underneath the sun. You don't have to do that. You just make it once as a web app, and then it works not only in the browser, it works as a dedicated app in Windows, Linux, everything. but I don't know that that's a good thing for a developer, but it's not a good thing as a user. As a user, that means every single one of your applications that is Electron based, you're essentially running another instance of a browser. And so I think that's kind of the things, it's one of those things that people complain about quite a bit is we have development practices that are requiring users to essentially buy beefed up machines. Like
Yeah.
that, you essentially in this day and age, if you want to have a machine that will run 90% of the applications available, you need to buy a new machine or buy a machine or buy parts for your machine that will upgrade it so that you can do that. And it's all unnecessary if developers would make the effort to make those native applications on each system.
I mean, as a user, I agree because it's not me doing the development, right? It's perfectly fine for you and me to sit here and say, well, if you guys weren't such lazy bastards all the time, you could be developing all these apps for every single, platform out there. Why are you so lazy? Get off your ass, But honestly, we know that that's not the case. They would much rather spend their development time on new features and stuff like that than over all the time having to support each and every version of their application. It's much easier for them to have this thing that allows them to create it and just push it out for every single platform. And even as a user, I think that for the most part is a good thing because it does allow them to spend their development time on things that really matter, like the main features. But I mean, I understand. Obviously, I understand where you're coming from, and I do agree partially. The thing that I was talking about earlier is making it better, but maybe, and this is something we've talked about before, is that they should make browsers better. Like if this is gonna happen, like the thing is, Tyler, is you talked about they're forcing people to have another instance of a browser. That only matters because browsers take up a lot of memory. If browsers didn't take up a lot of memory, nobody would care. Like the vast majority of people, like your mother probably has never opened up a task manager in her life. And maybe once or something, unless she absolutely had to, right? My mom's exactly the same way.
Maybe she accidentally did it once.
Right. So they don't know that Firefox, like if I opened up BPyTop right now and looked at the number of processes that Firefox is taking up, it's probably like 80 or 100. Like it's nuts. Like every single instance, every tab creates its own process, everything. It doesn't bother me because, again, a ton of memory. But if you're really slow on the memory, of course that's going to bother you. But it's not going to bother you that there's a ton of processes. It's just because it's the effect of there being a ton of processes. Your shit's slow. It makes it make everything slow, and that's the user-facing problem that we have. Is that when something takes up a lot of memory and you don't have a lot of memory to spare, you're probably going to experience bad performance. If they fix the performance, whether it's from like a browser perspective, they've done it before. Like they've made it so browsers created, like there was a big push about 5 years ago to make Chrome better on battery. And the thing that causes Chrome to eat up so much battery is that it uses a lot of memory. Running memory, turns out, sucks your battery dry. So 5 years ago or so, they cut the amount of memory that Chrome uses by a significant amount. But since then, and Firefox followed at the same time. But since then, people have stopped caring about that so much because, they have bigger batteries or whatever. So Chrome has started, and everyone else, because everything's based on Chrome, has started to not care about that so much, and it's crept right back up to where it was before they made the changes. So they can make it so that their browsers use less RAM. Like it is possible. And they can do that without removing features. It's possible to do. It's just they have to have the will to do it, and that's where the problem comes. They don't seem to care so much that their browser takes up so much memory. As long as the browser's fast, the easier solution for them is just to say, hey, if your browser's slow, go buy a new computer that has more memory in it. That's it's easier for them because it puts the onus on the user to increase their performance, rather than the developer. And that's the problem. Like that's the whole issue with Electron, is that it's a good idea. I think that I'm happy that it exists, but the effort to make it improve, to improve it, whether it's on the Chromium side or the Electron Foundation or whatever the hell it is, they do something. The effort to improve it just doesn't seem to be there, and that's disappointing.
I completely agree. Completely. I sadly enough, I think it's very odd, but true that for Electron to improve, I don't think necessarily there's something that glaringly needs to be fixed about Electron itself. It's if browsers improved, Electron by nature would
Get
improve
better. Yep.
itself. And I don't know that Electron itself can do something special saucy enough to end up right like improving over browsers. I don't think Electron can do something where it's like the applications that are made using Electron are going to run faster than they would in the browser. That is a big task, a big undertaking. And they're also like, this is something to do with browsers and Electron. There has to be an incentive for the developers making the browsers, making Electron, to do that. And because the general consensus is if something is not working for you or you're using too much RAM, buy more RAM.
Yeah.
That's the mindset that we're currently in.
Go ahead.
No, you're the only thing I was going to say to finish that off is pretty much I think the only incentive that would push developers towards fixing this issue is RAM prices to just skyrocket.
That is one way that it would work, but I don't think that they care. Because RAM a couple years ago was insanely expensive, like even way more than it is now, and it didn't change anything. So I don't think that they care. I think the only incentive that could be offered that would get the people who would be responsible for fixing the browser and therefore Electron to actually do this is the developers who develop their apps for Electron. So if you're Slack, if you're Discord or whatever, those developers have the power to, raise a ruckus with the people who are behind Electron and the browsers to actually make things better. If their development their experience in developing their applications is poor, and their users are complaining to them, maybe that then would push them to complain to the browser and stuff like that. It doesn't seem to be happening though. Like they're the ones, they don't seem to care either. Like you get on the Discord forums and tell them that their app is slow because it's using Electron, they don't give a damn. Yeah. Like they don't care at all, because they're much more interested in figuring out new ways to push $5 Nitro subscriptions, like
so true.
Like that's the only thing Discord cares about, is how many subscribers can they shill their $5 subscription to. And let's just transition to that for a second. Don't ever buy a $5 Nitro subscription. Don't do that, okay? There are much better especially don't do that if you're doing it to support the creator of whose Discord you're on, because we get nothing of that, right? If that's the reason why you're doing it, take that $5 and give it to them on Patreon or PayPal or whatever. It's much better because they actually get something for that. If you're doing it because you want more emojis, then do whatever you want with your $5. That's fine. At least then you're going to get something for it. Somebody's getting something for it, because otherwise it's just
maybe.
Discord.
Because to hit a certain level, like one person, if they wanted to do it, where we could do 1080p streaming on Discord, I believe you have to spend like $30 a month. Like you'd have to do multiple $5 nitros. Up to that certain level. It's ridiculous.
I really want 1080p streaming too, but it's just it's not there. Yeah. Anyways, that was a complete tangent, but it's still kind of the point, is that the developers behind like things like Discord, they don't care that Electron is bad, just because that
it's performance eating. They're like, well. And it seems like a lot of devs have the same kind of mindset as Dylan. Luckily, Dylan popped in here and he said, RAM's so cheap, you might as well buy more. that's pretty much the sentiment for everyone, especially in the Electron space. Is if you're having problems, just upgrade RAM.
Yeah,
And
Dylan and I
it's
had
a
this conversation the other day in Discord where just because $99 is cheap for you, like for a lot of people, $99 is like half their paycheck. Like that's not cheap for a lot of people. So like I would love to say like I could go and spend $99. Sure, I could do it, but I don't want to, you know. But some people even don't have that kind of disposable income. But maybe those people aren't maybe those people don't even care. Like, who knows? I don't know.
No.
Sort
I
of.
mean, you have a good point. It's one of those things where, in your case, it might make sense to just buy more RAM, but I feel like there needs to be a push in the development space where decent excuses for not making something more performant shouldn't be made. Even though you have sorry for hitting the microphone, even though you have a valid argument in that RAM's not that expensive, go buy more. That shouldn't be an excuse to not make something more performant when you can. And kind of that goes with my argument of, with some things, it makes sense to use Electron for that cross-platform push, so everyone can access your program on any platform. It makes sense to do it that way, but when you have the capability, you have the development power to do that, like Discord. I mean, if we're going to be honest, Discord can definitely afford the development manpower to make a not proprietary, but it's going to be proprietary anyway, but a native application. They have the power to do that. It's not economic. Yeah, you're going to have to spend some downtime, some of your development power, not working on new features. Like, let's be honest, everybody who uses Discord, we could give a flying fuck about a new freaking feature. There's already too many in Discord. Just spend the development power on it. I know that there are valid excuses, valid arguments for not doing it, but you would definitely get a more good experience for most people. Even somebody like me, I'm not quite as crazy with you as RAM. I don't have 64 gigs. I have 32 gigs. That is still obscenely more than I need. Like, that's plenty of RAM. But I would still like it if the Discord app didn't eat up a shitload of that RAM. It would be better. It's not a problem. It's a minor gripe I have. If you could improve it, and you can afford to, you should. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, excuse me. I think that one of the things, like the problem around this whole thing is that it gives Electron a bad name. Despite it being a good idea, despite it being something that everybody uses, nobody uses an Electron app and thinks, well, this is a fantastic, perfect experience. You know, especially if you're technological enough to know, you know, what's kind of going on, and, you know, you pay attention to your system monitor. You'll have even if you have enough RAM, you're still going to, you know, kind of know that there are things about this application that could potentially be better if, you know, they just put a little bit of you know, effort into it. I mean, it's just, you got to remember, as we said at the beginning of this conversation, neither Tyler or I are developers, so we very often when we talk about these these topics, we can't adequately put ourselves in the place of actually being a developer. And know that, well, you know, maybe they spend all their time actually doing important work. I'm sure they actually do. I know we bitch about you know, tons of new features and, you know, them pushing their subscription service or whatever, but I'm sure that the developers behind Discord do spend time on things that are actually important, and saying, well, you should, you know, set that aside and make this thing better. I mean, some of that I still think is true, but we don't want to say, well, you know, obviously they're just sitting around collecting a paycheck. That's probably not true. So it is hard from a user perspective who has at least some kind of technical knowledge over how Electron acts and how it could potentially be better, to put yourself in the place of a developer who makes an Electron app and then puts it out into their audience, and then doesn't seem to care that it does these things that are obviously subpar. So I don't know. It's just one of those things, and I don't like. I would bet you that outside of this audience, like outside of the people that we're talking to, most people don't care. Like, they just don't, like, if they're on Linux, they download Discord, and as long as it runs okay, they're fine. They probably have enough RAM. It may be a little slow. They might notice it every once in a while, but probably not, because I mean, for the vast majority of people who just use Discord, they're probably just chatting, and you're not gonna. I mean, if you're just text chatting back and forth with a bunch of people, it's not going to, you're not going to notice a bad experience. Probably it's only when you get into doing other things that it might affect it, right? So it's most people probably
and it's also,
don't care.
Sorry to cut you off.
That's fine.
It can definitely be even more confusing for people who just come over from Windows, because Windows eats up a lot more RAM out of the gate than Linux does. And
we bitch about GNOME taking a gigabyte of RAM. Like, you open up Windows, it's like 4 gigabytes of RAM. Like, what are you doing?
Man. Nowadays it's like 6. It'll start off at just eating up 6 gigs of RAM. It's ridiculous. But for somebody who's coming over from Windows to Linux, when all of that Windows overhead is gone and you're running an Electron app that is an Electron app on Windows anyway, like, oh,
my system is really fast. Yeah,
exactly.
I've been trying to get my mom to switch to Linux. She's having so many performance problems. Like, you'd be so much happier on Linux, but she doesn't want to do it. All right, moving on to the thingy of the week. So we call this section the thingy of the week because, well, for 2 reasons. One, it was funny to begin with. I mean, I don't know that it's funny more, but it's definitely something that it's just kind of stuck. But also because we were much too lazy to come up with an actual name for this section. So, Tyler, what is your thingy of the week?
Mine is Helix, which is described as a postmodern text editor. Excuse me. And it's really nice. I've talked with somebody else today who uses it. I believe I was talking with Felix over on Discord about it, but it's got multiple selection support, tree sitter integration. It's got code completion, language server support. It's built in Rust, so no Electron, no Vim script, no JavaScript. So it's nice, and it has a lot of modern, insane built-in features, like fuzzy finder, the symbols, project-wide search. It's got a lot of stuff. I'm basically just reading off the main website right now, but I'm going to be checking it out live, like in depth, trying to use it, see how well it works for me, because I've been looking for a text editor that has a lot of the features like NeoVim, or just a heavily customized version of Vim without needing to learn a whole bunch of new shit, customize it and build it up from the ground myself. And this seems like it's a really good suit for me personally. So I'm going to be live streaming and checking it out later on. So if it seems interesting to anybody else, definitely come over for the stream. I don't know. I think it's going to be really good. It seems very appealing. That's why I threw it in here. I figure there's probably, like me, quite a few people who've just not heard about it. And it at least looks very interesting. So yeah, that's my thingy of the week.
Okay. Mine is something called Blue Griffon, all one word, BLUEGRIFFON. And what this thing does is it allows you to edit websites. And by edit websites, I mean, like, it will literally load up all of the HTML and CSS in the top tier directory of your website. So that gets all of the the theming and images and everything there, and then you can edit it in a what you see is what you get edit style editor. So you can add links, you can add pictures, you can add pages, all the stuff in a, like an actual like editors, and you can move things around like you would in like a WYSIWYG editor, and it's really good. And I've used it a couple times, and it just like I know I know I'm a Vim guy, like I'm a big Vim guy, but this was an amazing experience editing this thing without having to edit a lick of HTML. Like there was no tags for like doing like a list item or a link or whatever. I didn't have to do any hrefs or any of that stuff. It was just you know, type in the title of the episode and highlight it, click the link button, paste the link, and it was done. And that was so cool. My biggest complaint about it, is that they put a hidden file in your home directory. And if that wasn't bad enough, the name of the file, let me see if I can actually find this thing. The name of the file is called .disruptive space innovations -sarl, and that's not even the full like name. It's like truncated. So the name of the folder that they put in there is like 3 or 4 words long. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. Like I love your application, but you gotta stop that. That's really bad. Anyways, the Blue Griffin, it's good. I do not know if it's open source or not, so I can't speak to the license that it's under. I did enjoy using it. I have a feeling that folder in the home directory will probably keep me from keeping it on my computer because it just pisses me off, but it's still really good. So give that a try if you edit websites at all and you're lazy like me. So that is it for this week. Coming up next week, we're going to be talking about... So whose topic was today? Was this my topic or your topic? You remember?
I think this was my topic, but to be honest, I am not sure.
At this point, I don't even know. So next week we're going to be talking about, are there too many distros? So that should be fun. Okay, I don't know whose topic that is either. So this whole going back and forth thing, I don't remember. We just throw things in there. It doesn't matter. All right. Anyway, so before I go, I should take a moment to thank my current patrons. You can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/linuxcast. You can actually, these are my current patrons. I'd like to thank them: Robert, Syd, Devon, Patrick, Fred, Kramer, Maeglin, Jackson Tools, Steve A, CyberGuyLinux, Garrick, Samuel, KB, TGB, Keith, Andy, Uncle Bonehead, Tri-Devil, Mitchel, JDawg, carnondated, Jeremy, Shaun, Odin, Marnie, Ross, Eduardo, archsinner, Elliot, Marek, Cam, Joshua Lee, Peter A, Crucible, Dark Benedict, Primus, PM. Thanks everybody for watching. We record this live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern time around this time. So if you want to join us live and join in the chat, which we mostly ignore, sadly, but you can do so at the linuxcast.com, youtube.com/linuxcast. We will see you next week. Adios, people. And he's red in the face, man. He's red in the face.